with hosts. And today we're speaking with.
This is your boy Esteban.
I come to think of it, you're gonna talk every day. So, anyways, okay. So I actually have like a few 10 questions that I think would make people more acquainted with what they're doing. You know.
Lay it on me, sister.
Okay, so I've been thinking, what's the best piece of advice that you have ever received or given, actually?
The best piece of advice that I can think of for people is no matter what, never lose faith in who you are, never lose touch in who you are. Always remember to be yourself. It's very easy to get lost in the luster of other people and trying to follow behind the trends or the thought processes of everybody else. Trying to be the most popular guy in the room or sound like the most smartest person you ever heard. But you got to realize that you're yourself for a reason. If you choose to believe in a God or not, you were created even by your parents. They created you to be you. So always, always be yourself, because it's very easy to forget who you are if you spend a lot of time trying to be somebody else.
Okay, do you think that you actually to take that advice for yourself, or is it just let's say it, but let's not do it?
Well, it's very, very, very easy to be someone who doesn't practice what you preach. Saying things is way, way easier than doing them. So it's a process. It's an everyday task. It's something that you have to really instill in yourself, because again, it's just way easier to just spend your life imitating everybody you see and trying to be this guy. Now, don't get me wrong, to take little pieces and parts of different people who you admire, that's okay. Imitation is the best form of flattery, as they say. But again, you have to maintain your personality. You can't dive straight off the deep end of being everybody else. Now, that is, like I said,
Yeah,
easy. What you say? Go ahead.
falsifying yourself.
Exactly. It's you have to maintain a balance. You have to maintain a balance, because if you don't maintain that balance, there is always going to be that possibility where you just completely forget who the person was in the mirror, to start off with. Who you started off as. Every day we evolving and becoming, you should be at least evolving and becoming a better person, becoming a smarter, wiser, more experienced person, allowing your experiences to shape who you are. So, if you don't keep in touch with who you were before, then you'll completely lose yourself. And that can lead to a lot of existential problems. That can lead to you, waking up one day and really seeing I don't like who I am, because I don't even really recognize myself.
If I'm being honest with you, talking about my experience and people, I don't think anyone's personality is really authentic. Because I myself, when I was younger, grade 8, in American middle school in South Africa, getting up high school. When I first started making friends, because I didn't have anyone to go with me from primary school or elementary school to high school. It was a really big change for me, and I had to make entirely new friends. Even though I knew people, I wasn't necessarily close with them because it was the peak of COVID. So I had one friend, and she and I was in these big arguments, and then I had to realize, okay, I gotta make new, I gotta make new friends, right? So I then started copying other people's personalities, because I really wanted to fit in, because I didn't want to be the girl who sits alone eating her lunch in the bathroom, right? I was debating on it. Not gonna lie, I was debating on being a total outcast and just never socializing with, because I had people to talk to online, because I still had friends on group chats and stuff like that. Um, so my personality went like an entire 180, right? I started like smoking, and I did like a lot of things that I would never have imagined to do, right?
Right.
Only because I wanted to fit in. And some of those aspects that the way I changed my personality still stays. Like I do still smoke, like I hate to admit it, but I do still smoke, right? And I do still do a lot of things that I told myself to do when I was meeting them, but that just became a part of my personality. And when I met someone new and my personality would change just to suit them a little bit more, right, that piece of myself would also stick to me. So I'm just like this big bundle of different personalities all squished into one because of how I changed myself for other people. And I do regret it because when I was in grade 10, I did go through like this heavy depression stage where I just didn't recognize myself, right? Like I loved myself, but I really hated myself because I changed myself so much. Or if I look at the person I used to be and the person I am now, it's like, you know, what am I? So I think that advice we were giving is really important. But at the same time, I did also say that to a lot of people as well. Like I was also like, just be yourself and don't worry, right? But then on the same time, I was busy changing myself for other people, and I regret it in some aspects because it gave me a lot of bad habits. Because you know, in South Africa, I think I don't know if it's in America as well, but people drink from a really young age, right? Like 30, they already start like drinking a lot, right? Some parents allow it, some others doesn't because the legal age was 18, right? But underage drinking is like a really big thing in South Africa because everybody loves to party and they have a braai or barbecue to be more explanatory of what a braai is because I know a lot of people don't know what it is. And a lot of people drink, right? Something I would hear a lot is, oh no, I went to this one party and there was like a bunch of drinking, right? And I got so hungover the next morning. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, if I ever drank myself drunk and I got hurt, right, my parents would kill. They would literally hang me, right? They would smash my head with the bottle that I drank I wish I was lying, but it's true. Like my parents are really against underage drinking or drinking until you're drunk. Like they do think it's like really bad because while you're young, you still develop, and drinking kind of stops the developing age a lot, or the developing process. Sorry.
Yes.
And I just think to myself, you know, these people drink, but do they drink because they wanted to drink, or did they start drinking to fit into other people that were drinking? Like, did they have older friends who started drinking because they had older friends that were just like out of high school and were allowed to drink, and they started drinking, and then was like, I gotta fit in because otherwise these people aren't gonna like me anymore because they're adults now. So you start drinking and you start ruining your life because you want to fit in, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people go through this process of changing themselves for other people. And like, even though everybody says, no, just be yourself, be authentic, like you don't have to worry. How many people actually do that? Like, how many people actually feel comfortable to be themselves? Like, as soon as I stopped, like, being what everybody else wanted to be, I became more aware of myself. Like, I started, like, to love myself a lot, right? And I lost tons of weight in grade 8 to grade 10, right? Like, I was fat, and I'm still chubby. Like, I'm not going to say I'm, like, this most skinny, beautiful athlete model type thing. Like, I still have a belly and stuff, right? But I did lose a lot of weight because, well, smoking kind of takes the, like, it takes your, what's the word in English? It kind of makes you not want to eat.
Yeah, it
right?
takes
It
away your
kind of
appetite.
Right. So since I started smoking, I ate less, and then I kind of starved myself to the point that I would say I almost developed anorexia. Like I don't joke about it when I say I went from 70 to weight 50 in like 3 months, right, in grade 8. And that's not just a thing about puberty hitting, because it was a really unhealthy habit, right? And I still can't eat a lot. because of how I changed myself for other people. But I really like how I am now because I am not scared to show, like, I really love makeup. Like, I don't post about it. Like, I do sometimes. But it's not something that I would go out wearing because my family is really in the box people. Like, they don't like going all out. Like, I'm the type of person who would wear, like, the most outrageous fashion outfit that I could. Like, I have a fur coat. What 17-year-old person owns a big, like, hairy fur coat?
That's definitely
It's
old school
weird.
style.
It's weird. And I really love wearing things that people wouldn't necessarily wear in public. Not in America. Like, not like it's under the belt or it's too hot outside to wear that. Okay, well, sometimes I do have a problem dressing up too warmly because I really want to wear that out and it gets like 40 degrees Celsius, right?
I've definitely been there
So
before.
I do have that struggle. But I like embracing the type of person I am. Like, I like embracing the fact that because of so many times that I've changed my personality, I have like all these different aspects of myself, right? I like dressing up to show what type of person I am before people meet, right? Like, I like wearing the most outrageous makeup. But do my parents allow me to go out without makeup? They do not, because it's too old to say for a kid. But it's just who I am.
Right.
And ever since I started being my own person, that I kind of made up from being so many different people, I started to actually tell people a lot of times, you shouldn't change yourself to feel a part, right?
Yeah.
But on the same note, I did that as well. And that's why I know how hard it is and how big of a wound it makes when you aren't yourself, right? And not a lot of people really notices that thing because I don't really show like everything that bothers me easily. Right? Like, I have one friend that I tell everything to. And then I have other friends, but it's really controversial. Like, I can only share some aspects of my personality with them because that's like the personality that they met. Right? Like, sometimes I think that I have like a personality disorder because I wouldn't change myself, but different like personalities come forth with different people, right? Like, if this person likes smoking and drinking and like they're really extroverted, then I feel more comfortable being extroverted, right? But if I'm talking to an introvert, I'm more introverted because I know how it feels to feel excluded. So I like to include everyone, and that's like also a really big part of my personality. For the fact that I have so many people in my mind that I have to keep happy, that I want to keep everybody around me also happy, but not like in a people pleasing way. Just want to like affirm that, not in a people pleasing way.
Well, there's nothing wrong with wanting people to be happy.
Exactly. Like, I don't go out of my way to make someone happy when it upsets me. Like, on the same note, I do that, but I make sure that I myself am still happy because I love myself a lot.
Exactly.
Right? And when you find true self-love, it's a lot easier to be happy. It doesn't mean I don't have days that I still struggle to get out of bed. Like, I still have like a semi-depression lingering, right? But yeah, that advice is really good, and I think more people should realize that before they change themselves like I did.
So what would you say would be the advice you would give to people then?
Well, it would kind of be the same. Like, just be yourself, be authentic. If you're weird, be weird. If you want to be weird and you're normal, then be weird. Like, it's all about experimenting. You have to find yourself, even if you find it in others, right? Like, if you take a little bit of aspect, like, the same thing, like you said, like, you take a little bit of that person and you keep them around with you forever. Like, my friends that I had taught me a lot. Like, I had this one guy friend, like, I've been friends with him for 3 years. We're not friends anymore, but he was like a huge part of my life, and my entire grammar changed because of him. Because, like, okay, so I'm Afrikaans, right? So let's say you ask a question like, do you understand, right? In Afrikaans, it would be verstaan jy, like understand you, right? And he had this thing where he directly translated it. He is Afrikaans, but he would directly translate English to Afrikaans. So then it would be, doen jy verstaan, right? And that's not grammatically correct at all. Like, it's basically like saying, understand you, but it's, do you understand, right? And people get really mad when I talk like that, but it's like a part of me that I formed for him because I talked to him a lot. Like, sometimes you just pick up on how they talk a lot. Like, especially me, like, I'm really influential when it comes to grammar. So yeah, just find yourself in other people and make your own personality with that. And if you want to be weird, be weird. If you want to be normal, be normal. If you are extroverted, be extroverted. But don't allow people to change because you don't want to feel excluded. But you can still adapt from their personalities and adapt from what you've learned from them to not make the same mistakes that they have.
Okay,
So basically just listen to other people.
So with that being said, I think we've given a little bit of a, journey into who we are as people. But I think that we should actually, not go too far with the personal detail sharing, but just give them like a little snippet, or not a little, it can be as long-winded as we would like, but we should give them kind of a descriptor of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, if you would like me to start, I will.
Okay, go ahead.
So, okay, like I said before, I'm Esteban. I'm a young man in America. I'm a black male. So, I have the experience of a young black male living in America. I've always been introspective, meaning I've always searched myself. And like we said before, I'm very big on knowing thine own self, knowing thy own skin and being comfortable in my own skin. I'm not the most handsome, I'm not the most athletic, I'm not the richest, I'm not the most of anything, but in being that, I've learned to love who I am. Like, if no one loves me, then I know that I will always love me. And that has been a very hard and challenging, and it still is a challenging thing about myself. I've always been able to, the interests that I have always led me to being interesting in it of itself. I'm a very I wouldn't call myself influential because you need power to have influence, and the only power that I have
I would say
comes.
you're very,
What'd you say?
I would say you're very outspoken.
Exactly. But that comes from me understanding my position in life. Because again,
Yeah.
I wasn't born with, you know, I wasn't born with the resources or the power. I've had to either get it from my connections through my family, my parents, or I've had to get it through building my own, source of resources. So, and that, I've learned again that using my voice, your voice is your power. Now, how you choose, and power, with great power comes even greater responsibility. You need to be responsible. Like with this podcast, I was inspired. I've always been, big into watching podcasts since I was young, like watching Joe Rogan, watching any type of podcast ever. Like, that's let me know that, your voice is very, very, very much so what defines you as a person. That's obvious, but it's like when you really think about it, you get deeper into the introspection of what that really means. So I've always been somebody
Yeah.
who's been big on, I want to use my voice to not only garner attention and use that attention to, build up my net of resources. But I want to use my voice to inspire people to be better, to do better, to think better, and hopefully make a better world for everybody.
I understand that. And I think quite with a lot of things you said, like I can relate. For example, like I'm not really that outspoken, but I do have a really strong opinion. Like if someone says something that I don't like, and I know a lot of history about it. For example, like a really big controversial example, um, like feminism
Mm.
and stuff. When people say they want to go back to the old generation, like when men used to be superior to women, like I would go really deep into the history because like I have a really strong opinion about it. And not a lot of people enjoy that aspect of myself, and that's also why I wanted to start my podcast because, like, I started watching podcasts when I was in grade 6, right? Like, I really loved my true crime and my urban legends, and sometimes I did like the power of law or the law of physics. Or, I really liked listening to people talk about things, like.
Right.
And sometimes I wonder, like, how they got the passion to start a podcast. Like, how do they feel comfortable with talking to an absolute stranger, basically, about something that they could have like massive arguments about?
Mm.
And sometimes, if you do have close business with someone, and they're a close relative, like a friend or whatever, that could spike a lot of conflict. And that's why I don't like starting podcasts or YouTube channels or anything with friends of mine because I know they don't agree with a lot of my opinions because I'm so strongly set in my own opinion because I have done research about it because, well, I mean, I listened to it, I read about it, I've seen it with my own eyes, and a lot of people haven't, right?
Right.
So in a way, I want to talk about those aspects that changed myself and the way I view things and why I started having an opinion instead of just listening to others and just agreeing. The thing is a voice can be a powerful thing,
Yes.
but you have to start somewhere. Like no one's going to be influential vegan, right?
Mm.
Like I'm definitely not an influential person. Like if I'm being honest, no one really knows me when I'm like if I walk down the street, no one's gonna know me. They're just gonna be like, okay, she lives here with those people, right? And even if I'm at school, they just know me as someone who they have seen around. But they don't really know who I am as a person, right? And they don't know how strongly I'm set in stone with my opinions. And I want to show this podcast like things that people don't really enjoy talking about.
Mm.
Because I think some people just don't like talking about it because people get a lot of different opinions. And for me, the different opinions is really important because without different opinions, I wouldn't have made my own hard proof opinion. But it can still change. Like, let's be honest, I learn new things every day. Like, I can change my opinion on some things a lot if I have more information about it. Like, even you yourself, like, when you started talking, I had, like, this really set in stone image about like how America is and the type of people that they are. And I have talked to American people before. Like I have had tons of Americans that I've been friends with. But they always showed me the same stereotype, right?
Right.
And you kind of change that aspect for me a little. So you kind of changed my opinion about America and people in America.
And
So I want to talk to other people about their opinions on stuff as well. And if you can change my opinion about it, that's really achievement.
you did the same with me though.
Did I?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, like not only okay, so to give a little bit of context between what we're saying here, we didn't really explain it yet, and I think this would be a very fascinating topic for episode 2. We will discuss our release schedule and how we plan to structure this podcast a little bit more deeper into the podcast. Right now, we just giving y'all our introductions and our mindsets. But we both come. I'm an American boy, as anybody who views from my side of YouTube may know, and I'm discussing this, and I'm in a partnership with a South African woman. You know, these things really, you would think that, I mean, like, of course, it's obvious that we're going to have our differences. We're from literally two different sides of the planet. But it's like, in knowing those differences and in sharing our shared experience of what we perceive as reality, we're able to find, like, even though we both knew we're completely different, for one, we able to find out that we not so different, but also we able to see how we're different and what makes the people in our sections of the world different from each other. Now, we're separated not only by, I mean, shit, I'm an African American, but this woman, is more African than me. Like, she's a true blue blooded African. Like, in America, we have a
My
joke. In America,
my
we
ethnicity is German.
Okay, so listen, and this goes into what I was about to say too. Like, you would think the black guy is African, and you would think the white woman is American. Like, that's just how people perceive us. But no, we're literally like,
Except for the accent.
what'd you say?
Except for the accent.
Oh yeah, when you hear your accent, you would think you're like a Dutch woman or an Afrikaans woman. But like
Afrikaans.
Afrikaans. But it's like, we have a joke in America, and we say it's all the, like, in America, black, if I'm not mistaken, black people have overtaken white people as like the dominant race in America. But
And South Africa as well.
right, so it's like, you have this perception of who's supposed to be where. But then we have this joke in America where we say Elon Musk, that man is more African American than even me. Like, Elon is a bigger African than I am. Like, he got more African in him than me. A black guy. That's kind of like a little snippet of not only what this podcast is, but how the world is. You can't really judge a book by its cover, and this podcast is a great example of that.
Yeah, I just want to also add, like, we're going to have a lot of guests from other countries. Like, we want to talk to people in India and Korea and Japan and Europe. Like, I'm really interested to know if you're like French people. I think they're going to curse a lot.
Me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The thing is, it's not just our worlds that we want to talk about, it's everyone else's worlds as well.
Absolutely. The world is here for us to unpack it, and we need you guys. We need you to help us do that. We want to know, we not only do we need engagement in the comments, not only do we need y'all to like and share the videos, of course, but we need y'all opinion. We need people who want to be heard, who wants to come up here and tell us what your life experience is. Like, how is life on your side of the planet? We all share this planet, so we would love to see how you perceive life.
I also want to add, we're recording this via Discord. So I would put on Discord, like I would put my Discord username in the description of each episode. And if you guys want to come up and talk about something in your own countries or something you think should really be discussed about, you can always just send me a friend request. I would also put my Instagram and my number as well. And then you guys can just like text me and ask if you guys can come on the show for a day for like an episode, and we can discuss what you want to discuss. And we're not talking about just allowing influential and outspoken people on the podcast. Like I want to talk to the most average person in every country. Like,
absolutely.
It's not about getting famous. It's about letting people know about the world and everybody in it.
Exactly. Because what we suffer from in our world is we have a world dominated by its borders. We can't allow the separation of being, once the internet went and made us connected to each other, That's when humanity should have realized that we're working with a very powerful force, and it's only going to get bigger and better as we advance and as we grow older. Eventually there is going to be a point where the world realizes that we're all connected, and it's not going to change ever unless somebody like destroy the internet, which I don't see happening, but you never know. Then we're all gonna be connected with each other, and even then, we still gonna be connected through trade and things like that. But we have to realize through this platform and through each platform that we use to be on the internet, you know, it's better for us to be together than it is for us to be apart. No matter how we choose to do that, and no matter how we choose to go about this process, if we all can explain to each other and understand each other better, then wouldn't that be better for everybody overall?
Exactly. But actually, speaking of which, if you could change the world, right? If you could, well, one aspect of the world, what would you exactly change? Like, would you take away the borders? Would you like crush the entire country, like the entire, like every country into one, and make it like one entire continent where everybody can just be with each other?
Ooh, would I reestablish Pangea? That's a very, very, very amazing question. That's a very deep question. And I would challenge the people to leave a comment about that, because we really I would really love to know what you guys feel about this. I'm sure we both would. But I can't speak for anybody but myself. But for me, if I could change one thing, do you already have an answer, or you got to think about this too?
You know, I should actually think about it because there's a lot of things in this world that's corrupted. For example, um, the division in every country and
Yes.
the hate and discriminatory against certain people and the stereotypes and the stereotypes. And in a way, I would just like to take away all the hatred that people have against other people as a community or as an individual person, or just take away the things that make us different in negative aspects. Because on the same time, people being different is kind of what makes people people, and that's
Mm,
what makes us so fascinating is the fact that we have different ideologies. But on
absolutely.
some aspects, it's better to have the same opinion, for example, against like racism or sexism, um, which are actually topics that I think we should also go into. Well, even though it's uncomfortable, it's things that not a lot of people talk about um, or understand about. And I think you and I being like completely different races would be actually a really interesting conversation to discuss on the channel sometime.
Absolutely.
Um, but sometimes I think that people should have the same opinion about stuff, and other times we have to pick things for different people. Like for example, hobbies. Like everybody has their own thing that they enjoy to do. Like I enjoy doing makeup or like anything art related. Um, and then you have other people who do like athletics and sports, and that's what makes us different. And that's what starts conversations for the fact that we're different. But when we talk about controversial opinions, for example, talking to a racist and what is it like a non-racist?
You said, is there non-racist? What'd you say?
Yeah, like is there a word like called non-racist, or is it like racism and anti-race? Yeah. So an anti-racist person and a racist person talk together, and they have like this big argument. Like to be honest, I think no one should be racist at all. Um, that's an opinion that everybody should have the same like opinion on, that racism shouldn't be relative, right? But that's going to be hard to exactly take away because a lot of people look different, and that's the thing that we also should take away, like the entire fact that people judge people for looking different.
Yeah, I would say anti-racist is pretty much the word in itself. I mean, like I guess bias free, non anti discrimination, anti discriminatory, equal opportunity, affirmative action. These are the terms you're searching for. But I feel like, yes, everything that you touched on is exactly right. I feel like, like you said, if we was all just gray blobs, that would destroy individuality and that would destroy any sense of uniqueness. Like, even a racist is unique in of itself because he's race, or they're racist. Like, that's not very, I'm not gonna say it's not common to be racist, because believe it or not, if racism wasn't common, then it just wouldn't exist anymore. That shit would get stumped out. Like, every human has a bias. Like, you like seeing yourself in the mirror, so seeing people that looks more like you will make you feel more comfortable just in itself. Like, even if you don't acknowledge it or if you don't realize it, it's a subconscious thing. But again, we
But it's
need.
not
Go
it's
ahead.
not wrong to be biased. Again, like, it's not wrong to have a biased opinion about something, but it's when you get like offensive
Right.
and when you like really, like, the hatred is wrong. Like,
Exactly.
hating another person because they have a different bias than you, right? Or hating a person because they have a different skin color than you. That's wrong.
Right.
But saying, okay, I prefer dating white men over black men because I'm a light skin and they're light skin and the other person is dark skin and it just looks too different for me, that's not wrong. It's just my personal opinion. That's my taste in men, right? But if I'm going to say, no, I hate black men and I wish I want to kill them all and I wish, like, apartheid was bad and white men are superior, that's when it's wrong. That's what you should not do.
Yes, and that's like you said, preference is a very big discussion in America. Like you said, a lot of people who say, I only date black people. I'm a black man. I only want black women. They got big boobies, they got big booties, they got, the facial shapes is what I'm attracted to. Like, that literally is just your preference. So you're entitled to have your own preference. Nobody can tell you you're wrong for having a preference, but it's like, sensitive people, and I used to be a sensitive person. Like, a white woman telling me she only like white men, I used to say, okay, are you racist? But then I really had to think about it. Like, I can't really fault anybody for having a preference. That's just what you like. Now, again, like you say, if you take it too far, it depends. It's like levels to it. It's like stages. Like, if you're if you're a racist and you just do not like any other race besides your own race, then that should just only negatively affect you. Like, people should view you as being, or people should view the racist, I should say, not, to point any fingers at anybody in the crowd, but to say that the racist is a racist and they should be ostracized or they should be viewed with, caution. That's how racism should be. Like, all the people who agree with them, they can agree with them, even if they not silently agreeing with them. If they are open and they're being loud about how they feel, that's, as an American, I was born and raised off of the values of freedom of speech. In America, we have rights, and one of those rights is freedom. It's literally our second right, like our Second Amendment. No, it's our First Amendment. It was literally the first thing that Americans wrote into the Declaration of Independence, or whatever the fuck, the Constitution, whatever it is. Like, they literally said, if you have this opinion, you can say it. Now, what people fail to realize is that's not the only thing that they said. They said you have the right to state your opinion, but you do not have the right to not be judged or have any consequences come from it. So I can get on TV and I can say any anti-Semitic thing. I can say any anti-gay, any anti-LGBT things. I can say anything that I want to, but that does not defend me from the consequences that will come from it. And that's what people fail to
Mm,
realize. So if you're racist, you have the right to be as loud as you want to be. What you don't have the right to do is try to affect anybody else's life. That's where people go wrong
exactly.
at.
But do you think in America the freedom of speech is actually really like practiced? Like, do you think people really have freedom of speech in America?
That's a great question, and that's really a huge topic that's very, very, very big now, especially with this last coming election. We don't have to speak on the election yet. That's a very sensitive topic, especially for us Americans. But um, censorship and um, freedom of speech has been a huge topic. Like with the internet being bigger and bigger, your influence, and that's what we even said at the beginning of the podcast. Like if we get and gain a lot of influence through this podcast, through this medium, a lot of responsibility comes with that. And one of those things that makes that the case is how your words affect other people. So, yes, I do feel like freedom of speech is being attacked and um it's not really accepted anymore these days. Like your opinion, again, you have freedom of speech, yes, but you don't have freedom of speech not without consequence. So you can
No, I get
say, what'd you say?
no, I get that. I mean, like hate speech is something that I don't think should be practiced at all. You know, like I get it, you don't like something, but there's a limit to much like to how you can refer to it as hating it. For
Right,
example, like, you know, homophobic people, like, okay, we get it, you're homophobic, right? But don't make it everybody's issue. Like that it
right.
feels wrong to make it this issue. Like no one really cares anymore. So why do you act as if everybody should care about your opinion? Because that's like I don't expect people to like or to agree or to like to pray towards what I'm saying, right?
Mm,
Like I don't need to be worshipped, right? But sometimes when you talk to someone and they have a really strong opinion about something, especially when it's like against racism, homophobia, or you know, um, being gay is also something that a lot of people have strong feelings about.
mm-hmm.
Like I think people kind of force their opinions down your throat, right? It's either this way or you should die,
Right,
right? And that's not right. But I accept the fact that people have different opinions, right? But other people don't really realize that. They think that their opinion is the only opinion that matters. And I think that's when people don't understand when it comes to freedom of speech. Like it's the uniqueness of everybody has their own opinion. So let's celebrate it instead of squishing everybody down into a box and saying only this is allowed.
right. And that's a really huge issue. Like, especially, well, I can't say, I've faced this a lot in America because, again, like, it goes from people have this really bad habit of saying because you have one opinion, you have to be agreeing with everybody else who have these completely separate and completely different, having nothing to do with what you just said in your opinion, but they group you together. Like, for example, politically, I'm not going to speak on politics that much. I'm going to try not to, even though we talk about whatever the fuck we want to in this podcast, but still, like, it's a touchy subject and I don't want to divert from the main topic too much. But people feel like if you have one political view, even if you aren't a complete supporter of this candidate, then you're a Nazi. That's what they say. You're a fascist, you're a Nazi, you're a racist. You hate black people, you hate gay people, you hate women, You know, you're if you agree with one thing that anybody says in this party, then automatically you want abortion to be, like it's just completely wild how people will completely put you in a class, like classify you as this, you're a Nazi, you're etc. Even though all you agree with is that you want the country that you live in to prosper. You can have an opinion that you share with one party, even if it is like, this is an extreme example, and I'm not saying this is right, but what we have to do is realize that Nazis came out of a need for their country to be better. World War I
Yeah.
destroyed the economy of Germany. So a lot of German citizens just wanted Germany to stop being as fucked up as it was. Just because Hitler took advantage of that and made it into a whole party movement that was based off of evil, because they wanted to, um you everybody knows what they did. But just because,
And they want to genocide.
what you say?
He wants to, like, I mean, kind of did, but he committed genocide. I think
Yeah.
that's the word that we look for.
Yeah, that's you can't, like, you can't justify that at all, like that. And then again, like, it's things like that, like, okay, we can talk about this, like the swastika. The swastika was known as a symbol of the universe. It symbolized, um, like any symbol, it can have the derivation of any meaning that people universally or agree on. Like if we agree that a circle looks like the sun, some people may say the circle looks like the planet. Some people may say the circle, represents the entire universe. These are three completely different views, but they all are valid in and of themselves. Now, what I'm speaking on is, swastikas. If anybody has a swastika, they're immediately associated with Nazis, even though Nazis used the swastika because it was already having a meaning. There is ancient temples that uses swastikas. There's all types of swastika symbolization. This is just an ancient glyph, but because of the association with it, and the same thing goes with ideologies. Like, if you think that any race, or I'm not trying to laugh at this, but it's just so insane. If you think that any race, even though Jewish people aren't a race, but I'm not just talking about Jews. If you think that any religious people, what you say?
Like I said, any race or any religion.
Right. Any group of people or any person, like, if you think that genocide is okay, then you're going to super hell. Like, you should not be alive. Period, point blank. Yeah, there should be no reason that you find to destroy all of a race or a religion or anything. That's insane. But like,
Yeah.
you know, again, I wouldn't, like, if I see somebody with a swastika on their face, even me, I'll just be like, oh, this nigga's a Nazi. I'm probably not gonna listen to what they got to say. But also, you always have to have the mindset that even a fool can teach you one thing. Like, you can learn anything from even a fool. Like, so you can't, again, like, I get punching any Nazi that you see, punching any person that you see with a swastika tattooed on their forehead. I get it. Like, I understand why you would do that, and I probably would at least avoid them. But like, when you can't go too far with this mindset, because again, like, you can't tie down somebody completely to one group. Like, you can't classify them as a Nazi just because they like this political candidate. Period, point blank.
Yeah. On that note, I also want to like say something. As like we learned about Hitler in grade 9, right? Or grade 10, right? We learned about it in grade 9, right? A lot of people make jokes about genocide and being an Nazi. Like they don't mean it, right?
Right.
I mean, we're children, kids, right? So if we see kids who drew a swastika, they probably did it as a joke, like they think it's all dick
Right.
on the pictures or something. It's not something serious. But when a grown adult, right, who has known the history, like they have their own mindset, they don't do it just for jokes, right?
Yeah.
That's wrong. I mean, you have immature people that also just do it for jokes, but we're talking about serious people who genuinely like preach, like the swastika, like genuinely say Hitler did a good thing, right?
Right.
Those people are wrong.
Right.
But people who do it for jokes, just because they're kind of fucked up, right?
Yeah.
That's a different story. Because, I mean, children today, they don't really see the history as something serious because I think people don't really think history is that important until it's too late.
Right.
I think, people get a big sense about how history formed our generation and everything that's happened in the world after they get out of high school, like after they study, like when they are actually in the real world and see these genuine, real things, right?
Right.
But if a 15-year-old kid draws a Nazi symbol or has like a Nazi pin just for the joke because they studied about Hitler, right? I think that's like a different thing. Like then I would be like, okay, you know what? This kid is just
a stupid kid.
They just exactly. But when a grown adult who seriously probably drinks beer on a Monday morning and on a Monday night, and who wakes up just little less than a man and who goes to bed a little less than an animal, right? That's a Merchant of Venice reference.
Yes. Yes.
If that's how you behave and you have a swastika on your purse or like a man purse to be more like specific, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Then I would generally say you don't need to have you have to have respect for them, but you don't have to value them or think more of them as a person. Like you can be like, they're just a little too human to be called an animal.
Mm-hmm.
But that still doesn't give you the right to hate them because maybe they have a reason why they think Hitler's movement was valid. I mean, if you talk to my grandpa, I don't know if he would ever be on the podcast. Like, I think he's gonna make everybody hate this podcast. He fought in the army, back in his day, and I think in America too, it was kind of normalized for as soon as a man turned 18, they have to go off to war and they have to go into the army.
Yeah.
And my grandpa was a soldier, right? So he's seen a lot of terrible things. So his opinion is really set in stone by the things that we've seen, right? And if I'm being honest, he has a swastika on his wallet, right? And it's not because he believes in it. Like, he hates Hitler, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the same time, he's also a man-child, right? Deep inside, his house, the way he grew up was really tragic. Like, he was in an abusive household, and I think a lot of older people was because it was normal to hit your child if they were doing bad.
Yes.
A little bit too much, right?
Yes.
But he has pride, and that inner child never really experienced anything, right? If you ask my grandpa what he's building, he would say he's building like a cannon or a little train that like his grandchildren could ride on, even though most of his grandchildren are teenagers. We have our one cousin who's like, I think grade 4 now. But he built stuff as if he was a kid. He would build cars, like little tiny, particle-sized cars, right?
Wow.
Because he's still a child inside, right? He bought a fucking swastika wallet for the joke because he thinks it's funny, right? Like, my grandpa's a really funny person, but not a lot of people would really be like, okay, that joke is really funny because it could get also a lot of hate, right? But it doesn't mean he doesn't have his own like solid opinion. Like, he really has his own opinion about racism. I mean, he's a 73-year-old like white like male. Like, I think most people of their age is really Like, even when I'm talking to a black person who's that old, they tend to be a little racist.
Yeah.
Right?
Things were different
And
back
that's
in the
just
days.
how. And I don't judge them for being, like, I don't judge anyone for being racist if they're that age. But if I'm talking to another person, like, in my class or in my, like, age group, and they're like, they hate this race, I'm like, you have no reason to hate them because you're involved with them every day, right? You don't have a reason to exactly want to kill them, right? Because they did nothing. They're just normal people. They weren't raised in any different circumstances than you. And most of the time when I'm talking to someone who's racist to my own age, they grew up in, I'm not going to lie, poverty, right? Because, and then you would talk to another person who's not racist. Like, let's just use, like, a really stereotypical thing. Okay, so a poor white man in South Africa, right? He's 17 years old, is really against black people, right? But then there's a black person who's really rich. He's also 17 years old, and he's not racist, right? Like, because it's just like these different circumstances of, I have less than you, so automatically I hate you thing. And because your skin color is different than mine, I'm going to hate your entire race, even though there's other black people who are just as poor as me. Since you, the black man, is richer than me, I'm going to hate you from now on, right? And it's the same thing when a black person is less fortunate than a white person. And it could happen when, like, a white person is less fortunate than a white person. Then you have this hatred because you want what they have, but you can't get it.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah.
No, I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
So I think generally, I don't think racism exists anymore. I just think it's hatred to certain aspects that you wish you had, or like you don't want to mix with something because you don't understand the culture. Like, I think that's like a big part of racism is the skin color, but in the new generation, I think racism is more about the different cultures, right? Because since you're different than me, I don't like you because I'm scared of that difference.
This is how I view it. I think that, like you said, our grandparents, it's very different because we born in different places. Like, it's kind of like the swap for me of what it is for you. In a way, I wouldn't say your grandparents, but, my people was brought over here on a slave ship. Your people came over there on trade ships. It's kind of funny, but still, like, it's true. So,
Actually, interesting fact, I'm sorry that I'm cutting you off real quick. I just want to, like, explain.
Go ahead.
Like, how my family came to South Africa. Like my dad's part of the family, his dad is French, right? His father, when my great grandfather, when he was like a little kid, it was the early years of, or the end years of World War II, right? Either way, it was during World War II. And during World War II, the French people were really against Christians. So us being French Christians actually went on a stowaway ship in Netherlands to come to South Africa. We literally climbed aboard, like, we were literally cargo on a commercial, like, ship, being like, let's get out of this country because if we don't get out, we're going to get murdered, right? Now, I don't know exactly how my grandfather's, like, part of the family came to South Africa. Like, I think that's part of, like, the entire way that white people came to South Africa to discover it. Like, it's the entire Young Van David story. The forefathers, like, wanting to discover more about South Africa, and, like, there's a lot of racial wars in South Africa that's really touchy. So I'm not going to bring it up right now. But if you look at the history of the racial wars in South Africa, you kind of get why racism is a really big thing in South Africa or in the African continent, right? But other countries don't have that. They don't have that big racial war. Like, sure, there was slavery, and there's some aspects that is similar, but it wasn't a thing of being murdered while you were sleeping. For example, one of the wars that happened in South Africa, you weren't, like, invited to a party and then they buried like weapons in the sand and then murdered all your women and then waited to kill your wife and children, right? And that's like a big part of why South Africa still struggles with racism, because there's a lot of racist history, right? It's the entire thing of how white people came to South Africa and the entire exchange thing that makes racism so a big part of South Africa. But it doesn't mean that we should be racist now. Like, I still think we should not forget the history. Like, the history is very important. For example, the Slag van Boekervliet, or the Boereoorlog, but that was against the Dutch people and like Afrikaans people in South Africa, right? Even though the Voortrekkers originally came from Dutch, from Germany. Fuck. Let me retry that sentence real quick.
It'd be like that.
Even though the Voortrekkers was originated from Germany, like that, this is, I think, way before World War II, right? I think that was like in the 1800s. We came to South Africa to, like, you know, understand what Jan van Riebeeck talked about. And then there was like this big war between the Boere, aka technically farmers in direct translate in English, and British people, right? That's not a race thing. That's a thing of owning land, for example, kind of like the Ukraine and Russian thing, because we were under British. We were technically under what's the word?
Sovereignty.
British people ruled over South Africa. Well, we decided fuck this, and then we fought them to claim our own land. But we mostly consist out of German people. Well, not people who speak German, like it was Afrikaans, but you know, Afrikaans originated in Germany.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that.
So, yeah.
I'm just gonna say really quickly. I feel like we have to have like I know it's gonna be very controversial, but we really need to have an episode where we have the majority of Black Africans, South Africans maybe, and then Afrikaans people to like really discuss the world history, or not the world history, the history of South Africa, because I feel like on my end, Americans would kill to hear about just history beyond America. And then in the same vein, I feel like we should have some white Americans, some Black Americans, maybe Indian Americans, Native Americans. I mean, you know, like have Americans say they side of how they feel we all came into this big melting pot. Because just hearing how you recounting history, I can't speak on anything of what you're saying because I don't know. I'm on a whole other side of the world. My history, even though that's my continent that my originators came from, I haven't been a part of that continent for 600 years. You know, my bloodline hasn't. So I can't even speak on this. I don't even know where in Africa my bloodline originates from.
Well, if I'm being honest with you, we don't, since it's a really controversial topic, we don't talk about the racial wars in South Africa in schools anymore. They don't teach it like they did when my mom was in high school, right? Because, well, to quote, they say it is a too harsh history to teach children about. But it's more of a thing of it creates a lot of diversion, because it's a lot of you did this and you did this, and did you really do this and did you really do that? That situation.
If we don't teach history, then we're gonna not know. We could fall victim to the same mistakes that our forefathers made in the past because we don't know.
Exactly. And the things that I know from the war is things that my mom told me. Now, if I'm being honest with you, my mom grew up in a really racist house. So it's only common, like, for example, you were raised a Christian. If I ask you how, and you, let's say, like this is something that I myself actually thought about, because I once struggled with the entire term of being a Christian, because it was like really, it was back to the times that I was like having like a hard time. I was like, is God real, right? But if you ask a Christian, like how the earth was made, they would say God created it in 7 days, right? If you
Yep.
ask an atheist or an evolutionist, they would say the Big Bang,
Mm.
right? And they were, since they were children, it was indoctrinated that that is how the world was created, right?
Yes.
So I myself, who actually said I was atheist when I was like a few years ago, actually, was like every time I would think about, but how did the earth stand? I was already indoctrinated with God created it. So it was a thing of, I don't really understand how a like an asteroid could hit a planet and then just boom creates life, right? Like I don't personally understand it. Like probably if I do more research, I would understand it a little bit better. But I've never really done research about it. Like I know the basics, right? But I've never really gone into depth about it because I always believed God created the earth.
Right.
So even when I struggled with am I Christian or am I an atheist or evolutionist, I still never really thought about that question. But when I did, I didn't change my opinion of God created it because that was how it was indoctrinated. And if you grow up in a house where both parents are really racist, for example, my grandparents, my mom is obviously also going to be racist. It doesn't mean that she disrespects other races. It's just the way that she was brought up. It's just she thinks that those people should be separated, and those people ruined this part, or blah 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 blah, right?
And
it's just the way that she was raised.
That kind of goes.
But me, yeah.
That kind of goes into like what I was gonna say, because for the generation of your grandparents, they lived in a world completely defined by its borders. The only thing that you knew is what you were taught by your parents and your country. Now, our parents, they grew up in a world where they were, racism, of course, from even our grandparents, it was passed down to them because of that's the environment that they was in. Now, our parents, it was passed down to our parents. Go ahead.
In my own personal opinion, with us being in a generation where the internet
That's
is
what I was
a
gonna
really
say.
big thing, we can see other people's opinions and
Right.
learn different things, and that's kind of why racism isn't a really serious topic to young people, because it's funny. It's funny to make jokes about us because we're children, right?
Right. We don't understand the historical basis. We don't understand. Like, for me, being a gamer, that literally in America they call the gamer world. I mean, the gamer word. The N word is the gamer word. Like when you mad, you gonna say the N word. If you see a black person or you feel like somebody is black, you gonna roast them and you gonna start calling them the N word. You gonna blah blah blah. Like that's literally a joke. Now for my grandparents, if they was to hear that shit. Even my parents, like, they ignore it. They like whatever the fuck. But if my grandparents was to hear that, they would be like, what the fuck? Like, get the fuck off this game. I don't want to see you playing this shit no more ever again. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it's like, go ahead.
No, it's just free.
So yeah, for me, it's like, whatever, ever since I was a child, people been calling me this shit. Like, it's not that deep. It's not serious. But for my parents and my grandparents, it's like they lived through, being beaten or being discriminated against. I mean, even me, I experienced discrimination, but it's subtle. It's institutional discrimination. And when people say racism don't exist anymore, it's like what we spoke on earlier, right? For us, racism is like, it's subtle things. It's, the long-standing ramifications of what racism did to the earlier generations. It's the segregation. It's the separation of race. It's the, ideologies that we developed from our parents or from, life itself.
But on that note, right, most of the times when I heard about the wars, I heard it from my mom's perspective, how she learned it. And when she was a child, like apartheid only ended in 1997, if I'm correct. I'm not exactly sure, but I know it was in the mid-90s, 1990s, right?
Mm.
So, like, we ended, like, way after you guys ended it, because, like, we were actually excluded from playing worldwide sports because we were still being, like, we still had apartheid, right? But my mom was born in 1982, I think, or 1981. So most of her young life, like, I think when she was first like 20, apartheid ended, right? So she was still indoctrinated by what apartheid was. So she only like realized the like her sides of the war, like, you know, white people's side of the war, because that's what people talked still in the 90s, basically, right? Even though apartheid was less efficient, like, since the 1980s, it was still a thing of black people had a curfew at 8 p.m. and they can't leave their houses or leave their area after 8 p.m. because it feels dangerous to white people, right? That's the type of apartheid that we lived in, right? But people could still mix. Like, we still had black people and white people shopping at the same places, but we still had curfews for black people. And I could be wrong about this because I don't really. Well, when we study apartheid in our history classes in grade like 7, right? I didn't really care because it's not something that it's not something I went through, and like I understand how big of a scar it left for the entire world, but it's not something that affects people today, except with ideology and like racism, right? But most of the times I've heard how the war played out from her perspective, right? So when I started talking to a few friends that were in Cape Town, they were mostly colored people, right? They were mixed race or dark skinned, right?
Mm.
So it was really a thing of, okay, you know what? Since I'm going to teach them about history that they don't know, because if I ask someone, do you know about the Slag van Bloedrivier? I don't know what's that in English. I think it's a long story, right? But basically, no, we don't teach that in school, so no one really knows about that. But since my mom being racist, she taught me that. So because I wanted to tell other people about it, because I think it's a really important part that I'm still discussing, because I really like talking about wars and how it evolved and what happens in it and why it happened, right? I want to discuss it with everybody else. But me knowing that they are a different race, and I know it could be offensive talking about, for example, the fact that it was only 120 white people against like thousands of Zulus, right? And all the Zulus got murdered, and it stained the river red. That's what's called the Blood River. Well, this Slag van Bloedrivier, like Bloedrivier is Blood River in direct English. You know, it's really controversial, and I didn't want to offend them. So I did my own research about it, and I read countless of web pages about what happened because I wanted to fact check my mother's story, because I don't want to talk about something that I could be incorrect, because that could get me into a lot of trouble as someone who talks about racism, because racism is really, it's kind of illegal in South Africa. Like, if you're saying anything racist to someone, that could end your ass in jail, right? So I fact-checked a lot of the things my mom told me, and if I'm being honest, what she had told me was most of the times completely true. Like, well, actually, everything was completely true. I just learned more things by reading the web pages, so I could give a more
detailed,
a more decent explanation of what happened, a more factual definition of everything that happened, right? And that's why I know so much about the racial wars in South Africa, because that's something that really interests me, because it is a really big part of South African culture today, even though it's not really taught. Because, well, everybody's still in their own way, like, diverged from each other. Like, you wouldn't see black and white people mix on the streets easily unless you were at school with them. Right? Like I myself, I have a few black friends, but my school is mostly white people, so I can't exactly say, okay, I have tons of black friends. But if I was in a school that has more black people, I would always have more black people friends, right? But I don't judge them, right? Like just because you're a different skin color, I don't judge you. And just because what your ancestors did to mine, I don't judge you upon that because that's not your history. That's just your your race's history, right? But it doesn't define you as a person, right? And I know my race also did tons of things against your race that was also wrong, but I myself did not commit those things, right? So you don't have a reason to be racist or hate me for something people that probably wasn't even in my family at that time, right? Okay, maybe from my mom's part of the family, but yeah. But you know, it's a really like controversial opinion, but I just don't think you should hate a person because they're different skin color or because of what the past, because of what in the past that skin color did to the other skin color, you know?
Well,
but I think we should get off of this topic because we're going way too deep into it, and I thought we were going to save this for another episode.
Yeah, this is definitely a topic for its own episode in of itself. And again, I really do believe that we should have two different episodes, or maybe even more. It don't depend. I mean, it depends, but we should have people of all.
There's a lot to discuss.
Which exactly. We need to have different viewpoints and different, world histories of the same, cultures or different cultures but the same continents. But yeah. So to move on from there, I think that people understand like our world history and the things that come from it. Like, I can okay, how about this? I can give the American side. Like, again, we have like I'm not even going to speak on race, but just as far as like tensions between our people, I feel like the world constantly takes on the sins of our fathers. Do you know that saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like we all have this mindset that because my parents felt this way, I should, and of course, our parents are going to teach us. That's what parents are for. But, you have to understand what we're being taught, what we're learning. And, like, you have to know that your own experience in life, while you can take the experiences of the past and the people of the past, which you should do, that's what the people of the past are here for, to teach us. But you also have to form and you have to go off of life based off of your own opinion, but you can't let your opinion be fully like what it can't be everything, like, because you don't know all of the
Yeah.
world's history. But that just goes into really, and this is my shift to the topic, like, we have to understand world history, and people do not understand world history. Because when you say things like that, the first thing that people think of is controversial topics. They think of, oh, you're saying you got to understand racism or the history of all races or the history of all cultures. And like, yes, that's true, but that's just a small part of it. Humanity is only a small, if depending on how you view, your religious views. I'm not going to argue with anybody. I do, as far as religion goes, I will say I feel that there was, and this is an actual fact, but there was a point in history where science was overtaking faith, and a lot of the big
Yeah.
people in the Catholic churches, I won't even name any names, but a lot of big people was making it a thing to stop the influence of science and restore full influence of faith. Like, there's a full quote that's like famous where they say, like, I believe that it's necessary to halt learning in order to, stay true to our faith. And that is like the antithesis of what it means to be a human. I feel like humanity, the purpose of humanity overall is to evolve. And I feel like even these days, like we have lost touch and we have lost sight of that. We've allowed things like our faith or our feelings to come before learning. And I feel like that's the main issue that we're facing in our lives. Like, we have to realize that if we have a whole generation of people who don't understand the sins of our fathers, then we're going to be doomed to repeat them, even though we aren't conscious of the fact that we're repeating these sins. We still going to repeat them. It doesn't matter if we're not conscious of that fact or not. You have to be conscious. You have to understand where we came from. Not only do you have to understand the history, these are things that I think all people should look up. For one, the history of humanity. You should understand who Gilgamesh is. If you don't know who Gilgamesh is, I honestly feel like you aren't a true adult. If you don't know the first culture, if you don't know, like, you don't need to understand every culture that was formed in history, in human history. Like, that's what a historian is. That's why people go to college for that shit. But if you don't know the first
Yeah.
culture, if you don't understand what differentiates us between animals, the only difference between a human and an animal is the fact that we have the ability of higher thought. Now, we can have higher thought and still be fucking animals. If I'm not mistaken, monkeys have kind of a higher thought than other animals. But monkeys, they don't have the communication skills that we have. They can communicate with each other. All animals, if I'm not mistaken, have some form of communication with each other. But we can record our communication and we can record our thoughts. That allows us to be able to teach our kids way faster than anything that we can tell them. We can show them scripts, we can show them symbols, we can show them text. And through that, we can, you can build on each generation that comes after exponentially. It's an exponential gain. So you have to understand what it means to really be a human. You have to understand, like, if you're going to be a faithful person, if you're going to be a godly person, that's okay. But you have to understand that where science fails, like where you don't know something through science, that's where faith comes in. That's where your belief that the higher power, whatever name they may choose to take and whatever name you may choose to give them, it or them, whether you choose to believe in one God or 17 gods, that's your choice. But you have to understand that we're put on this earth to evolve, to grow, to become smarter, to become wiser, and to allow these things that we learn to be passed on to the next generation. That's where we lose in touch of the plot. That's where we lose in a plot at. We're allowing our feelings and our emotions to say we shouldn't pass this information on to the next generation because it might offend them or it might hurt somebody's feelings. Like you said, before with the topic that we were just talking about, y'all, actual human history is being denied access to the next generation simply because it may hurt their feelings. Like, I do understand telling a child something like that would destroy their mentality, of course, but you can't just completely strike that from the record books. These are things that should be known. These are things that you should not ever lose sight of, because once you don't understand history, then you allow, like, for example, they say history is written by the victors. That's why we're having this reality that we're having. That's why you see people saying, they don't even understand what reality is. And a lot of people don't, because we have a culture of reality being whatever somebody tells us reality is. For example, our
Yeah.
algorithms. We have so many different
Okay,
people. What'd you
just
say?
give me like my dad's. Just give me like 2 seconds. My dad's.
All right, just let me know when you back. When duty calls, you gotta answer. When duty calls, you gotta answer. Okay, the stream is back up. So
Okay,
yeah,
so where were we?
yeah, like, how do you feel about history being stricken from the history books? Like, how do you what's your thoughts on censorship? Let's talk about that.
The thing is in a way it makes sense. Like, not everybody wants to talk about what we're talking about right now. Like, not everybody cares enough about like racial wars or the history between like different continents or countries, or everything that made a country. It's a country. Like, sometimes people just like being alive in that moment, and they don't make controversial opinions about anything. Like, you get who just genuinely is really, really open-minded, right? Like, I myself, I still have a really hard-set opinion about stuff, but I'm still open-minded to learn and to evolve my own ideology and to understand other people's opinions and stuff, right? So in a way, I'm still open-minded, but I still have my own opinion about things. Like, if someone's going to tell me, okay, no, but I think, like, let's take roses for example, right? Someone tells me that no, they think roses should only be red, but I myself only like white roses, right? I would be like, okay, but why do you think red roses are better, right? I'm not saying, okay, you're wrong, it's only white roses should exist, like you are saying only red roses should exist, but explain to me your opinion on why you think only red roses should exist, And if that makes sense, I could agree with you sometimes. On other notes, it would also be like, okay, but I still enjoy thinking that white roses are better than red roses. It doesn't mean necessarily everybody should think the same as me. But, like, I enjoy it if someone says, okay, no, their favorite rose colors, like yellow, orange, or pink, or whatever, right? It's when you're so set in stone by saying, no, just red roses should exist, and I don't value or give your opinion any thought. That's for me personally as well. So in a way, I would like to learn about all the roses, right? Like, I would like to know everybody's opinion on that colored rose, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean my opinion should change about it. And I think it's the same with history. We have to study some parts of all the history to understand history and us as people more. I mean, if you take psychology, right? Most psychological findings is from when they think, okay, what went on in us minds, not people, because what people currently do is sometimes what people in the past did,
Absolutely.
So censorship isn't really valued for me personally. Like, I don't like the fact that we don't learn about other. Like, I know it's South Africa. We should learn about South African history, but I don't want to learn my entire ages from grade 4 to grade 9 so we can choose if we want to learn about history or not, right? I don't want to learn just about slavery or just about Mandela or just about apartheid, right? Because there's so many more things in South African history that we should also take account for. Okay, we do also learn about Gandhi, but we don't really study about how the forefathers came to South Africa. We don't talk about like what the forefathers went through and what Black people, well, the Khoisan went through when the forefathers came to South Africa, right? We don't talk about that because that's a really touchy-feely subject, right? And I think that's wrong. Like, I personally think that we should still talk about all those things, right? But we don't have to go into depth. We don't have to go into this entire psychological warfare about it, right? We can just talk as people about it, and we can learn as people about it. It shouldn't have an opinion-based thing. Like, I think we should all be open-minded to the history and just not repeat it, right? but that doesn't mean we should take it out of like history books completely because people think it's a touchy subject, you know.
So my mindset, and this goes back on what I was saying. What you say?
No, I didn't say anything.
So this is how I see it, and like this is what I was even speaking on before. So people have to understand every thought that you have going on in your head has a term for it, you know. Like every person's mindset, if somebody is an asshole, you know, we may call them an asshole, but historically they would be known as a hedonist. You know, if somebody is a very introspective person who loves thinking, who loves asking why, we would call that a, we, me and you might call that somebody who's just introspective, or what do we call it, deep thinker. We may call it somebody who is a I can't think of the word, but anyway, the historical word for that is a theologist. Like, you have to understand that every theology has a history behind it. Now, this history has been, and in knowing that, like Plato is he's not the father of theology. It's somebody else. I can't think of his name, but Plato is like the father of thought. No. Plato is the father of theology, but another person is the father of logic. I can't remember his name right now. But logic in itself is asking why is that the case. Like if I can tell you, 1 + 1 = 2, a theologist will ask you why. You know, a hedonist would say, "Oh,
Aristotle.
Aristotle, thank you." So a hedonist
Yeah.
would say, okay, 1 + 1 = 2. What does that do for me? You know what I'm saying? Like, he's gonna be thinking of the materialistic aspect of that. And again, like, somebody might call that a selfish person, a materialistic person, or an asshole, but history would call them a hedonist. So you have to understand that every single thought in your head has an ideology behind it, and that ideology has history. Now, humanity has lost the plot. We don't understand that. All we understand is that I'm a special snowflake. I'm me. This is my reality. This is how I perceiving reality. So I'm special. And that is the truth. Like, if you choose to believe you're special, or if you choose to believe you just like everybody else, that's your choice. But what you need to realize is that there is a history behind all of your choices. And to fully understand yourself, in my opinion, you must understand that history. So I've done things, this comes with, growing older in age, and, the more free time you have on your hand, like, everybody's situation is going to be different. I've been afforded the luxury to have parents who've given me a lifestyle where I can sit back and think the majority of my time. I don't have to worry about survival. I don't have to worry about, my circumstances. The only thing that I have to do is sit and be retrospective in my life and think. That was a luxury afforded to me because of the hard work that my parents did. Not everybody's gonna have this same story. Not everybody's gonna have this same path in life, and that's what goes into, like you said, people have to have the interest to get into these topics, and that's a very
Yeah.
unfortunate thing, because if you don't have the interest to learn yourself, then that should really show you like a true testament on how, our people, our species have evolved into, de-evolution in a way. Like, we're told that the only thing that we got to worry about is pop culture, friendships, maintaining your steez, maintaining your status in life. Like, and that's where the trials and tribulations of living in a city. I can't think of the exact word for it, but oh yeah, living in society. Like, that's why they say you can't get too caught up in society, because society is just a construct. It's a social construct that we made up in order to, best survive around each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have class, if you don't have if you don't abide by social constructs, then you're seen as like a black sheep, a outcast, a weirdo. You're outcasted by society. And that, to most of everybody, that will be the end of their life. Like, if society chooses to cast you out and view you as a black sheep or view you as different, then for most people they would just, not to, trigger warning here. Remind me myself while I'm editing this to post a trigger warning. But that might lead them to having suicidal thoughts, or even, suicidal actions, because we're so hell bent, and we're so, like, it's beaten into our minds that society is everything. Like, maintaining your status in society is all there is to life, and that's very not true. But people don't know that. But I mean, it's like, that comes in again with your interest and where your interests lie. Like, if all you're interested in is getting up the social ladder of society and becoming more rich, more famous, then, that's all you need to know about is society. But for people who really want to master their mindsets and really have mind over matter, I think that you need to understand your own history. And that means understanding where your theology comes from, where your not only racial history, but your societal history, your history on whatever country you're in, whatever continent you're on. All of these things really matter. Like, knowing and understanding yourself is not just about yourself. You got to know your family, you got to know your family history, and you have to know the history of humanity and the world itself.
Yeah, that's true.
But
I don't think a lot of people really. Hmm?
no, go ahead.
But I don't think a lot of people, like you said, I don't think a lot of people realize how big history is a part of us. But it shouldn't shape our mindsets completely. Like, it shouldn't be something that we should discriminate other people on because they didn't exactly. They weren't in history. They weren't the people like involved with the history.
True.
And that's the part where I think people struggle because people still judge people upon what history did to those people, right? But on another note, we should probably get off of this topic because we're talking about lots of like racism and controversial, like not controversial opinions, because I don't think we said anything that it makes people think, okay, no, this is something that should be illegal or anything.
I know what you're saying.
But I think we dove way too deep into this because we aren't even talking about who we are as people anymore.
Yeah, we definitely get in very deep. Very deep.
Yeah. So I think we should go back to the basic questions. Maybe we should cut out the entire like racism part for like episode 2. Like since we start talking about racism till like now, I think we should cut that like kind of out and make that like a single episode on itself as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we've been talking for like 2 hours.
Okay, so do you have any offshoots that we can move to, or do you want me to?
We can talk about like we can actually I actually made like a list to get to of get to know a person questions because I think that's like something that I want to know about us, like not just our mindsets and stuff, but like also what we plan to do with the podcast. Like I think that should also be part in the first episode.
Absolutely.
Like how we plan to grow it and a basic overview of the topics as well. Like I think we should go into like more like explain that we're gonna go into more topics except just racial views and
Absolutely.
historical views because not everybody's interested in that stuff.
Absolutely. So,
Okay.
what would be your next question then, dear?
Okay. Let me think. Cause okay, so what's the goal that you're working like? What you personally are working towards right now? Like except for the podcast.
Well, in my personal life, my job is I'm actually about to start college in January. Um, I am
That's
a what'd you say? Excuse me.
what you gonna study. No, what you gonna study.
So my main branch of study is gonna be IT. Like tech, is huge. Tech is huge. We live in a
That's true.
society where robots are like we literally starting to have Tesla robots. Like if that doesn't show you where we're going as a society, then you're just blind at this point. But to understand computers, I understand that like the internet in itself is a very scary concept to people, and that pushes a lot of people away. Like that hackers exist, that people who want your data exist, and to be rubbing shoulders and elbows with those people, myself included, really scares them. That really makes them think like, will I be attacked? Will people send will the government come fucking kick down my door and send the FBI to my house? Do I bring on unneeded attention to myself through studying these things? And I would say that, as long as you allow yourself to hold yourself back, you're always going to be held back. Like, it just depends on where you're going with this. Like, my brother, for example, he's a young man, and he studies cybersecurity, not only because he's interested in it, but because, when I told him, like my whole life, everybody been telling me, you love computers so much, you should work with computers. You should learn how to build them. You should learn how to work the insides and outs of the internet. And again, I've always been one of those people where the internet is a scary place to me. Like, the more attention I get on the internet, the more people target me, attack me, try to hack me, try to figure out my fucking personal info. And that's what the internet really is. Like, it's a whole bunch of neckbeards who have nothing better to do but be in everybody else's business. And a lot of people like to use the
Yeah, that's
fact exactly. A lot of people like to use the fact that they're in your business to try to scare you, or as a tactic to get what they want out of you. And those are malicious people. But not all of the internet is full of malicious people. And what people need to realize is that as many, probably way more, um as many as there are malicious people, there's way more good people. There's way more vigilantes, there's way more defenders than there are attackers. So, but again,
yeah.
like, even still, even with knowing that, you should have this information, you should learn this information so that you can better protect yourself. Even if you only study IT to study how to best protect yourself, the more the internet becomes integrated within our personal lives, which it will more and more every year, the more you should have the interest of learning how to protect yourself. But for me, I don't just want to learn like, I don't want to learn internet security at all. Like, security, I do want to learn it. That was a lie. I do want to learn it, but my main focus and my main field that I'm focusing on is web development. I want to learn front end development, I want to learn back end development, and they call that full stack web development. Because my interests have always been like meeting people, talking to people like we're doing now. I love meeting people with different mindsets and learning from them. So me liking to talk to people and chat with people, marketing is a great field of study to get into when you're somebody like that. And, web development and marketing can go hand in hand because I can market the fact that I know websites, I know how to build you a website. And people don't realize that when you're a website builder or when you're a website developer, marketing is pretty much B, to that A. Like it goes hand in hand with that. Like you have to be able to tell people I can make you a website because that's your main job. Like you're making websites. And then not only do you have to tell people I can make you a website, you have to market those websites to people so that people go onto those websites. So marketing is a huge thing, and I've always been good with talking to people, I feel, and learning people and getting to know people. So it would just make sense that I would get into a field where I can utilize these tools. And again, like talking to people is actually interesting to me. So if I can get paid or figure out how to monetize that, then I'm all the wiser. Like honestly, my main profession is psychology. Like I love helping people, I love talking to people, but I'm not a licensed therapist. I don't want to harm people further by giving them unlicensed advice. So yeah, I would say
No, me. Yeah.
sorry. I would just say that my passion right now is web development, but I'm very very passionate just about people. I love seeing what makes how people think and what makes them think that way. What about you?
Yeah, I get that. Um, for me, the main goal that I'm actually like doing now is just I just want to get done with like high school. I have a year left, and then I'm out on my own. But being out on my own means I have to get a plan, and never really I never really had a passion for stuff. Right? Like when I was younger, like I had like 20 jobs that I wanted to do, and then came grade 8, and then I was like, there's nothing really that I want to do. Like I want to, like in a way, I thought, okay, what? I can just be a teacher because that should be easy enough. Well, not easy, but it couldn't be that bad, right? But on the same note, right, I never really had a passion for teaching. In a way, when I'm talking to my friends, I have this bad habit of like analyzing them and seeing what's wrong with them. You know, like I see like everything that makes them them in the worst ways and good ways as well. And that's also why I wanted to study psychology for a long time. But at the same time, I can just read a book about psychology and use that for my own benefit. Like I don't have to help people with their problems and stuff, like except if they want to. But I don't have to make a business out of it because it's not because it's a lot of like study work. Like I don't mind studying. Like I don't have a thing against studying. Like if it's something I'm passionate about, I can study for hours. But the thing is I have little like motivation to study for certain things. So up until last year, I never really had something that I really wanted to do. Like it was always like, okay, maybe I should be a police officer or maybe like a detective because I really like true crime and I like thinking about how criminal minds works. Like maybe going to homicide, right? And then it's like, okay, but maybe I should become a teacher because I do like dealing with children and I do like helping people. But I don't want to teach people stuff because then it gets into a thing of, I share my opinion about it and I don't really have respect for the stuff that we are learning in high school. Like, for example, the upper class, like, I don't have a passion for, like, why those words have to be said in that way, right? And I do love English. Like, that's actually one of my favorite subjects. But it's still a thing of, I don't have a passion for studying for it. I'm not bad for English, but for my others, like, for example, CAT, I don't like the theory. We can't study really bad in the theory because that's actually study work because you have to remember terms and you have to give examples and stuff. And that's just things I just don't have a passion for. Like I like doing stuff. Like I like doing stuff practically. I don't like theory.
Mm.
You know.
Mm.
Actually, I do love theory. Like when I talk about psychology and sociology and like theology and philosophy, right? I do have a really big passion for those stuff, but those aren't things that's being taught in high school, right? That's stuff you go to university or college to for. And, you know, it just makes me think, you know, maybe if my school brought more things in that I found a passion, like I have accounting, biology, and cats, right? Now, those stuff doesn't fit into each other at all, but I want to just want to say my parents chose my subjects because they thought I was going to be too reckless about it and choose the easiest subjects just to get through the school and have nothing to do with those subjects, you know? And I am really interested in biology, but it's not something like I wanted to be a neurosurgeon as well because I really love how the brain works, and you know I think it's kind of cool, right? Or like a heart surgeon, a cardiologist, right?
Wow.
But then I think about the fact that I'm really off put by studying the terms and stuff, and it's not that I don't enjoy it. I just don't enjoy like writing tests for it. Like I can do an activity, right? Like I can answer every question that my teacher throws at me and stuff. But as soon as it's on a test, I just can't answer it. So right now, I just want to like finish with high school, right? But last year, I found a passion for doing makeup, right? Like I don't know how that came to be, but I really liked making myself look pretty. And I think I'm pretty myself, like just naturally.
Mm.
But it's a way of self-expression. Makeup is a way of self-expressing yourself, right? And that's something that I want to show everybody. So I thought, okay, you know, maybe I should become like, you know, influencer who does weird makeup looks that I actually go out with day to day. Because I'm kind of the type that would literally do special effects makeup with scars and blood and just go out and eat dinner with that makeup. Like I'm that gutsy. But with my parents, they wouldn't exactly allow that because they don't like how I'm being weird. Actually, when I was in grade 9, I told my parents how I struggled with my identity and I don't know who I am, right? And they said, you don't know who you are because you're trying to be out of ordinary and you're not special, you're just ordinary. That's kind of the vibe that they started to make me feel. Like they literally said I should stop being weird because I'm not weird. I'm just normal. So be normal. But on the same note, I'm not normal because I have all these things. Okay, in a way, in a sense, I am normal, but I want to express my weirdness as well. I like doing my makeup in ways that is like, what the hell is on your face type thing, and then I could like explain, okay, but this specific artist like inspired my look for today, and you know it's a conversation starter, right? And the same with my fashion. So if I do go to university, I'll probably study cosmetology and fashion, but I'm currently now doing extra college courses. Like you can take some college courses in high school. Like now, it's not like you're enrolled in a college, you just go to classes and get like certificates, and if you have nothing, then right. I don't know if you guys can do that in America as well.
Yeah, extra credit classes.
Yeah, but it doesn't give you really extra credit. So I'm actually currently taking some courses for nail techs because I also really like doing my nails, right? And again, I really like doing weird nails, but my parents would never allow me to go out of the house with weird nails, right? And my hair as well. Like, I cut my own hair. So I'm probably going to study hairdressing as well. So basically, my entire plan is just to go into beauty as a whole, right? Like fashion and makeup and nails and hair. But I can only achieve that once I'm out of high school. when I can actually like open my own stuff. Like I can open my own business. I can buy my own stuff without worrying. Okay, my parents aren't gonna like this because they don't think it's cool, and I don't think it's cool either. Well, I think it's cool, but if we talk about the definition of being cool, it's not really cool. It's just weird. It's uncanny for some people, right? Because not a lot of people would feel comfortable with wearing a bald cap and making your skull look as if you just got hit by a bullet or whatever. Like, not a lot of people would feel comfortable with going out of the house looking like that. And that's the thing that I really like, is that I have the confidence to do that. But my parents doesn't. So right now I'm just trying, like my goal right now is just to finish with high school so I can actually start being myself.
Yeah, it's what makes you unique.
Yeah, in a way.
I would say that yeah, that's a very, 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 I know they trying to get you to be quote unquote normal. I can't really speak too much on y'all family dynamic, but I would say every parent wants their kid to be quote unquote normal. Like, they just want you to not be somebody who is a black sheep of society. Again, society matters a
They just
lot.
don't. I think it's more the thing of they don't want me to be excluded and judged for how I do things differently.
Yeah.
But saying that I'm no different than anyone else, and I'm only trying to be different because I don't want to be normal, I think that's like something that actually really triggered me for like a long time. For the fact that my parents think I'm insignificant.
I could see why. They think that they just helping you, and in their heart of hearts, I'm sure they believe that they are, but they don't actually know what they really saying. Nobody wants to be a boring blob just like everybody else.
Exactly. And I'm not saying I'm like totally different from every other person. Like, there's a lot of similarities that I do agree with other people. Like, I am similar in some aspects with people. Like, I mean, most people don't want to study. Like, they just want to get out of high school. They just want to finish school. And I also feel like that. And some people are scared of graduating because then you don't have the stability of, okay, I'm in this place now. Like, you lose like your stability when you get out of high school. Like, I don't know if you went through it, but I myself would actually go through this thing of, oh myself, like, I'm not in high school anymore. I'm in the real world. I'm an adult now. Now I have to actually do something with my life that I can't just blame on other people. Because, I mean, if you do bad with tests, you always blame the teachers, right? And now, if you screw up your life, there's no one else to blame but yourself. And that's kind of the scary part. That's kind of something that I really wish that I could never go back to high school, that I could always stay in high school. But I really don't like tests. Like, I don't think anyone enjoys tests, right? Like, if someone gave me the lungs and was like, okay, cut out a piece of the bronchitis, right? I would do that. That's here it is, right? But if someone's going to be like, explain what the bronchitis does, like, I know what it does. I just don't like explaining it because, like, there's only so much words you can use. And then they expect like a 6-point explanation, and the teacher only taught us like 2 points on it, and I only studied 2 points because she said we don't have to worry about this big long question, and I'm like, oh. But I really do enjoy biology.
Yeah, me too. I love biology. I love chemistry. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying perfectly.
Actually, yeah. Surprisingly or not, we don't have history at our school. Like, we have history to grade 9. Since so little people are interested in learning history, they just kind of took it off the roster as one of the subjects you can choose.
That's insane to me. In America, history is
Right?
like I said, in America, history is like written by the victors. So yeah, we do teach history all the way up. I mean, even to college, but once you get to college, of course, you don't have to. If your elective doesn't have anything to do with history, then you're done. But history is more so like lies. You know what I'm saying? Like they make us learn history, but it's the history that they want us to know. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Um, but back onto like getting to know people. Um, what's your favorite? Like, what's something that you always wanted to try but never have? Like, what's something you regret never doing up until
Hmm.
now in your life?
Well, I say back in high school, I was a very quiet kid, believe it or not. I regret not being more social and getting more into groups because now that I'm not in high school anymore, having the like it's okay to have a small circle of friends who you really feel you can trust, but that limits you down so hard. For example, your connections, who you, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. So, for example,
Yeah,
if I wanted to start a podcast with everybody I knew in my hometown, that would be a very small, I mean, that would be a large grand amount of people, but for who I truly knew, and if I limited it down to the people who I could like literally tell their life story, that would literally be my family members and only a certain small, that would literally be like 4 or 5 people. Even though throughout high school I was a popular-ish guy, I was like, my name was known throughout the whole high school and everybody knew about all of the shit that I was doing at all times, but I would limit myself down to only wanting to talk to the people who I could trust. So that means I'm limited in that way, So many people, mostly like, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest with you here. Like in high school, the people who I kept in touch with was like, I mean, it don't matter if they was rich or not, but like the people who I really kept in touch with was like the people who appealed to me most. It didn't really matter if they had something going on in their lives, and again, I'm the type of person where I don't want to use people for what they have in life. That's lame to me. But it really would have been advantageous of me to keep in contact with all of the people who actually did, good or great shit with their lives, because that would have just opened me up to be able to connect with them and network with them. Like if I had people who are already networking geniuses, then I can get in like a group chat with them and like bounce ideas off of them, and it would make my networking journey a little bit more easy. But nothing in life that's worth it should be easy. But I would say if I had to choose one thing to go back and do, if it's not like visiting a certain country or eating a certain food, something small like that, a huge thing I always have as a quote unquote regret was not being more social. I had every opportunity to be social in high school, but I just locked myself down to who I knew I could trust. And that's smart, yes. That's very, you save yourself a lot of grief, but it also comes with its own disadvantages.
yeah, that's true. That's true. For me, it's like I understand that. Like in my school, like I'm not popular, but a lot of people know, and I feel comfortable to talk to like most people in my friend group. Like we have like I smoke, right? Well, I vape. I okay, I do both smoking and vape, right? But in school, it's more common to vape because you can't smell the vape as
Mm,
much as you can smell cigarettes, right?
mm,
Now with that, we have like an entire group where everybody that smokes goes, right? We call it the tree, basically. It's dumb, but it sounds better in Afrikaans somehow. Like somehow. It sounds way better than confident sounds in English. Like no, let's go to the tree. It sounds wrong, like, right? But I've been a part of it since like last year, like midterm. I joined that group because before then I was like friends with a few people for a few months, and then something would happen and I would feel uncomfortable with staying with them, and then I would go to a different friend group, right? So I do know a lot of people, but a lot of people who know me they don't exactly like me. And sure, I also dislike some people in that like area, but it won't stop me from talking to them. But knowing they don't like me stops me from talking to them, right?
Yeah.
So something I would definitely change is I would have actually had just one friend group that I could stay with the entire way through high school. Because the guy I'm talking to currently, the one who was actually on this, like not on this boat, was on a call while we were talking,
Mm.
right? He has one friend group, and they've been together since grade 8. So that's 4 years that they have just like been friends. They don't know everything about each other because it's still it's guys, so they don't share a lot of emotional baggage, but they do know a lot about each other, and they can go fishing and stuff, right? And for me, it's a fact of I invite someone over for a sleepover, or I go sleep over at someone's house, and then 2 weeks after that, I'm just not friends with them. And then my parents like ask like, "What happened?" And then I'm just like entire story of like, "No, this happened and this and this and this." And it's partially my fault sometimes. Like I have this really amazing friend, but I had a boyfriend at that time, right? And he was like 18 hours drive away from me, right? So it was a long distance relationship, right? And she and I and this one guy broke off from our original friend group to just hang out alone because, well, I was the newest, I was the second newest person. The guy was a recent transfer to school, and she just felt uncomfortable with being in that friend group because she's really, really, really Christian, and she has really strong opinions about stuff. If it's wrong, she doesn't want to be involved, right? And we visited each other for like a few times, like quite a few times. But the guy started to like, and she liked the guy, right? She had a crush on the guy, and the guy had a crush on me, and I had a boyfriend. So I couldn't exactly pursue the guy. And he knew that, but he still started having feelings for me, right? And in that time that we were friends, I actually did stop smoking for a while. But then I started talking to the guy once after school alone, and he was like, "Yeah, no, he smoked when he was in his previous school." And I was like, "No, you're joking." I was so scared to tell people that I used to smoke because the friend group that we were in was really against smoking, right? So I had to hide that, and then I just kind of stopped because, well, it's not benefits. It's not benefiting, right? And he and I had some money. So we walked to a cafe type thing, a shop, and we bought ourselves a vape. And that became our little secret, right? We even made turns with it. Like one time I would take it home, and the next day he would take it home. And it's just like this thing of, just sharing it. And that was our secret. But she never should have found out about it, right? After a while, we decided to tell her that we started smoking again. And she was like, "Okay, no, that's fine." We tried to hide it for a long time. I think we hid it for like 2 weeks. And I know it doesn't sound like long, but in that moment, it felt like forever because I felt so guilty about keeping a secret from like a best friend, right? But to be honest, now I'm wondering if I can call anyone a best friend because of how many best friends I've had over the past years. And she was really against it, and she was like, "Okay, as long as we don't do it in front of her, or as long as we don't offer it to her, or as long as we don't, if I go to her house, I don't." And I was like, "Okay, that's good. I really don't mind it." After about a few days of him and I like continuing to play, she sent us a message saying that she doesn't want to be our friend anymore, and she's just gonna hang out alone for a while. And she's the reason me and that guy became friends, because they were in the same class, and that's how she found out that he was an idiot. Me feeling bad for making her feel excluded because she doesn't smoke, even though we didn't do it on purpose. I told the guy, okay, we can't be friends anymore, right? And then he was like, no, but we can still be friends. It's not our fault, right? And I was like, but it feels wrong to be your friend when she's the reason that you're back there, right? He didn't take it well, and we still don't speak till this day. Like, she and I would greet each other. It's just, it's manners. But for the rest of the time, me and the guy, we don't speak at all. Like, nothing. And I kind of regret ever, telling him I smoked. Because if you think about it, I would have still been in that one friend group if he and I didn't start smoking, or if we never told her that we smoked. Right? And that's a big thing that I regret. Like, losing friends because of my bad habits, or, not being able to feel like I can be myself around people. And with the tree, I felt more comfortable with being myself because everyone smokes. I don't have to hide the fact that I smoke. Everybody drinks, and I personally don't exactly drink, right? Because, like I told you, my parents would literally kill me. But that also makes me feel kind of excluded, because I don't go to parties at all because of people who drink, right? And I don't hang out with people as often because I'm not close with them. I know them, but I'm not close with them, right? Like, I have one friend who I can tell anything to, that I can literally call in the middle of the night while I'm in tears because I had a nightmare or because some guy broke my heart. But I don't have that with anyone else. And I really appreciate him. It's also a guy, and a lot of my previous relationships, or when I talked to someone romantically, they would always be disinterested because of the fact that I have a male best friend, and I don't really get along with girls. But it's not my fault. And, in a way it is, and I regret that. But, I kind of regret jumping around so many friend groups and never really having a solid foundation,
Yeah.
You're still there.
I'm just listening. Yeah,
I'm done.
I would say that I believe that if you have regrets due to, the past relationships and maybe mistakes that you feel you made, I feel like that if you have the opportunity, then you should take the leap. And I know you don't want to overstep or bother anybody, but if you have regrets, you should at least have closure. That whether it's good or bad, the result, that will still make you. It's better to have closure on a situation and know, okay, this is just how it is, rather than have that regret of not knowing. Because then you left to the liberty of, damn, this could weigh on your mind, your soul heavily for, however long, man. Like, you don't ever want to get to the point where things are just left unopened, like, or the books are left unclosed. I mean, like, you should always, at least, I would rather it be a definite finish to a story than it be left off on a cliffhanger. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is most of those relationships that ended, it kind of does have a definite ending.
Yeah.
Like the guy who was my best friend for 3 years, not my current guy best friend, like he actually came in only this year. But I think this is actually one of the relationships that I'm actually, that we solidify, because it's so near our end of high school, and neither of us wants to be alone during high school, or after high school. So we kind of made this plan about we're just always going to be with each other, right? As friends, involved as friends, right? But I met him through the guy the guy best friend I had for 3 years, right? And even though we were friends for 3 years, there was some times that we just never spoke to each other because I either had a boyfriend and that boyfriend wanted me to hang out with him all the time. And obviously, I didn't mind that because, well, I'm a hopeless romantic and I'm a sucker for love. So I dropped everything not for a relationship, but to have that more
Comfort.
intimate bond. Like you can't have that with friends in a way. And like, so there was periods when me and the guy of 3 years like just never spoke, but we were always friends, right? And sometimes the reasons why we stopped talking was because one was actually my fault. It was the first year that we've been friends, and I invited my boyfriend's friend to hang out with us because my boyfriend's friend didn't really hang out with anyone like solid, and I thought, okay, you know what? Since it's just me and that guy, if I make it into a small group, it will probably be more fun because then we can do group activities. And then two more people came, and then they just started talking about porn and women. And since I'm the only girl there, I felt uncomfortable, so I left. And that's when I met the three people in the major group chat. In the major group, and that's actually why we branched off. Yeah. After that, I met with the guy 3 years again, and we again hit it off as if nothing ever happened. And we talked about how we stopped being friends for a reason, and how I left things, and we talked it out, and we both took fault for it. And then came another argument type thing. It's really confusing, but we just stopped talking again. For I think it was again his friends, if I'm being honest with you, because I have a really thing of if your friends are making me uncomfortable, I'll just rather find someone else I can hate, right?
Yeah.
And then this year we started talking again, and then my boyfriend broke up with me because I was just red flags, quote unquote. He cheated on me actually. Then I went back to the guy 3 years, and we became friends again. And we actually in those 3 year time, I'm not gonna lie, I was in love with him. And this time I actually thought that he would like me, and he did say he liked me more than a friend, and he wishes he realized it sooner because now we have so much history, and he doesn't want to ruin that history because we're friends, and we don't want to relate to him. My mom's calling me again. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Exes, and I was his twin brother and this other guy, right? And this other guy were exes, and I was his twin brother and this other guy, right? And this other guy wanted to fuck me. Just FYI, I'm a virgin to anybody who cares, but I'm a virgin, right? But this guy wanted to fuck me, and then the twin of my ex caught feelings, and because there was an ex involved, the guy of 3 years kind of said he doesn't want to try anything because there's so much, if he loses his friends, he kind of loses a lot, sort of. And then we kept being friends. It was okay, you know what, I kind of give up. I give up completely, right? Then he just randomly stopped texting me. It was the beginning of exams, and a week previous he told me that he might be offline completely to study more because he has to focus on school because he doesn't want to do bad as he did in the previous term. And I understood that, but I didn't think he would actually do it, right? So when he started ignoring me, I kind of thought, okay, that could be because he just lost interest in being my friend as well. So I stopped texting him, and then he wanted to greet me one day after school, and because I didn't know, well, more like I didn't realize what was going on. Like, I kind of knew, but you know, it was kind of like, nah, he wouldn't really do that, right? So I didn't greet him. And then he blocked me, and then we weren't friends for exactly 100 days, and then it was his birthday. So I gave him a birthday gift and was like, you know what, I would really appreciate it if, like, I never told him that I wanted to be friends again. I was like, you know what, I'm fine, I have closure, I just really wanted to give you this gift because, well, you are still really important to me, right?
Mm.
Then the guy, the twin of my ex, since he likes me, he talked to the guy for years and was like, you know what? Talk to her again. Just unlock her and play with her and just see where it goes. Right? And it went well for a while. I actually had to convince him to be my friend again because he was like, nah, but he doesn't want to be friends again because it feels like the universe is out for us to never be friends. Right? It feels like the universe isn't right for it. But that kind of comes into what I said. I was like, you know what, you create your own path. Like, the universe and its choices doesn't really define what we should do, right? Just because we argue sometimes doesn't mean you should not be my friend, because friends do still argue, right? We started talking again, and he said again that he had feelings for me, and I was like, okay, that's good. I'm happy. Like, I'm happy with that. Like, I still have feelings for him, so you know, our story wasn't exactly over. But then came the part where I don't like unsurety. Like, I can't, like, go into a room if I don't know what's inside that room. Okay, well, if it piques my interest, I would still go in it. But when I meet someone and I talk to someone and I'm interested in them and they're interested in me, I need to know, is this just something, are we just going to talk and never really solidify this relationship? Or do you want to be in a relationship with me? Like, we don't have to put labels on it now, but I need to see which direction are we going in. Is this just a dead-end situationship, or is this aiming to be in a relationship? Because if it's going to end up being in a situationship, then let's just be friends instead. But if you're talking to me to be in a relationship, tell me that so I can know where you stand, you know?
Mm.
So I brought up that conversation with him, and he started feeling uncomfortable with it. So he talked in Morse code, and I got annoyed with it, and I was like, can you stop it? And then he overreacted and just was like, no, just leave me alone. It wasn't funny. After a while, I said sorry to him first, but I didn't overreact. Like, I think I was pretty decent. I just said, stop talking in Morse code, and I'm serious. Stop that. I want to have a serious discussion with you. That's my exact words. Like, I can send you screenshots. Like, I have proof. Then he said sorry. He overreacted, and I was like, no, it's fine. I also overreacted. And then he just said, I'm sorry. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. That message never received, and he blocked me. And that was finally the end of my journey with that 3-year-long, like, situationship. And in terms, I do miss it. Like, it was a really big part of who I am, and it was a really big part of my high school years. I mean, 3 years from grade 9 to grade 11. I've been, like, hung up on this guy, and even though I dated other people, as soon as I started talking to him again, I realized those feelings never went away. He was my first love, you know.
Yeah.
But in a sense, I don't regret not being his, like, I don't regret being his friend. I just regret the way it ended. Because if I just said, okay, you know what, let's just stay unsure and just be comfortable with the fact that he's your friend, I would have never lost him. But that's gonna be a so.
Gotcha.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.